Staying warm when winter camping is one of the hardest things. Compared to when hiking, skiing, or snowshoeing, you're not moving as much and it's harder for your body to keep warm. As a result, you need a solid layering system in order to stay warm. And today I'm going to share with you a super simple but effective layering system for cold weather so you can be warm and comfortable out on your trips. It starts with the layer against your skin, the base layer. The base layer is super important in helping manage moisture. Moisture against your skin is going to cool you off really fast. So you want a light, thin, next to skin, long sleeve, and long pant base layer in order to wick sweat and other moisture away from your skin. You want the base layer tight because a tight base layer is going to be able to grab moisture that accumulates against your skin a lot quicker. And you want it thin because thin base layer is going to wick moisture more efficiently and it's going to dry faster. Some people might think a thicker base layer is going to help keep you warmer, but that's not the purpose of the base layer. That's the purpose of the mid layer that we're going to get into a little bit later. For static activities like hanging out around camp, merino wool is my go-to. Merino wool is warm and also helps regulate body temperature. Word of warning though, I don't use merino wool when active like hiking or snowshoeing because it holds onto a lot of moisture. So when I inevitably sweat, it gets wetter than synthetic materials and doesn't dry as fast. Wet clothing when it's cold out is a recipe for disaster. There's a lot of brands that make great merino wool products, but I think Decathlon makes the best bang for your buck merino wool. It doesn't cost an arm and a leg, and it's really quality product. Next up, we have the mid layer. The mid layer is going to be your most versatile layer. Its purpose is to provide warmth and then also manage the moisture that was wicked through from the base layer. Your mid layers don't need to be anything fancy. They just need to have some thickness to them in order to trap heat. I like fleece for mid layers because it's lightweight, warm, and inexpensive, and because it's made with polyester, it manages moisture a lot better and dries faster. I wear both a fleece sweater as well as fleece pants as my mid layers. You can vary the thickness depending on the temperatures that you're going to be encountering. Wear a thicker fleece or mid layer if it's going to be cold, and you can make it thinner if it's going to be warmer out. I like having a zipper on my mid layers because it really easily allows me to take off or put on the mid layer depending on how warm I am. And being able to add or take away from the layers that you're wearing very easily is basically a superpower. So try and get clothing as much as possible that allows you to do that. At temperatures at or just below freezing, the base layers and mid layers that we just talked about combined with a shell is going to keep you plenty warm. But if temperatures get a lot lower than that, like they are for me right now, so I'm glad we're talking about this because I can put on my warmer clothing, then you're going to need some more extreme insulation. Down jackets like what I'm wearing right now are going to be your best bet for getting something that's warm and also lightweight. Puffy jackets with synthetic insulation are great, but they're going to be a lot heavier. You want a jacket that has nice thick baffles. Thin baffles like you see on jackets like the Ghost Whisperer are not going to be nearly as warm as those found on a jacket like the Decathlon MT900 that I'm wearing right now. Most people will think to have a down jacket or synthetic jacket in order to keep their upper body warm, but a lot of people neglect their legs, and keeping your legs warm is going to make a really big difference. While I like down for my upper body, I really like these pants from Enlightened Equipment, the Torrid Apex, that are made with a synthetic insulation. And that's because a lot of the time I'm out in snow and I'm kneeling, and my pants are a lot more likely to get wet, and synthetic insulation is going to hold its loft and keep you warmer if it's wet or a little bit damp. Synthetic insulation is a little bit less poofy than down is as well, so I like it on my legs because it allows me to feel a little bit more mobile. The outer or shell layer is going to help protect you from the elements. It's not necessarily going to provide any insulation for your layering system, but it's going to protect you from rain and wind. For a shell, you want something waterproof. Snow is wet and it will soak into your insulation if allowed. The ability to block wind is so that you can protect your mid layers. While mid layers can provide a lot of warmth, they're often very breezy, and a little bit of wind will blow the trap heat right off of you. I like something super thin and light as a shell material. There's two features that I think shell layers need to have. The first one is a cinch along the hem in order to just lock everything in. The other one is that it should have pockets on the inside so that you can store water in there or items that you want to keep warm. That covers off the core layering system, but you still need to worry about your extremities like your head, hands, and feet. For my head, there's three things that I use as part of my head insulation layering system. First of all, I have a merino wool toque, and I like one that is long so I can pull it down over my eyes in order to keep the sun out of my eyes if I am going to bed early. The second thing is a merino wool buff. So I like the buff because it allows me to cover up my neck, my lower face, and then I can pull it up over my nose as well. The third item is a balaclava. So I like a synthetic insulation balaclava. I can put this on when I'm sleeping. And while it helps keep you warm if you're using a sleeping bag, it's pretty much essential if you're using a quilt in cold weather because you don't have a hood to protect your head. The reason why I like a synthetic insulation hood is because you're breathing a lot of moisture out of your mouth, and that's collecting in your head regions. Because that, a down hood is going to lose a lot of its loft and warmth as it collects the moisture that's coming out of your mouth and landing on your head. For your hands, you want something that's going to keep you warm, but also that's going to allow you to be nimble and have dexterity. For that reason, I like a thin and nimble base layer and then thicker, warmer outer layers I can put on and take off as needed. The first layer that I have after my thin base layer is this insulated mitt. So I like the mitt because it's really easy to take on and off, and this one's very lightweight and warm. The third layer uses a similar system to what we use for the core, and that's a waterproof shell. So this helps block wind, prevents moisture from getting into the insulation, and just keeps my hand a lot warmer. These three combined keeps my hand very warm. I've taken it down to -40 and had toasty warm fingers. I think your feet are the most important, but also the most difficult part of your body in order to keep warm. They're prone to sweating and getting wet, and it's a lot more difficult to just keep piling on layers in order to keep them warm and still be able to walk well. There's 3 items that I use in order to keep my feet warm. On the outer layer, we have these Expedition booties from MEC. These are an insulated bootie that have a water resistant bottom. And what I really like about these is this thin material that you can pull up, and it acts as a good gaiter for you so you can walk around, you're not gonna get snow going down the boot. Underneath the Expedition booties, I have a synthetic bootie from Enlightened Equipment. These are made with the same material as the pants, and they're really nice because if they do get wet, they are gonna still keep my feet warm. These things are toasty warm, and I'll wear these inside of my sleeping bag or quilt as well. Underneath the synthetic bootie, I wear a thick merino wool sock. The key with socks is not to change into them right away when you get to camp. You might want to change into all of your warm clothes so you're not getting cold, but you want to give your feet a chance to cool off and dry off a little bit after doing something really warm like hiking. If your feet are sweaty and then you put your camp socks on them, you're just going to get those socks wet, and having wet feet is a recipe for disaster. For that reason, it's also a good idea to have a backup pair of socks in case the first set get wet. If you're looking for the best winter sleeping pad, go check out this video. I compare 3 sleeping pads that all have an R value over 6, but the results of a bunch of testing that I did was very surprising. Not only did I test these sleeping pads out in the field, but I also did some infrared testing, and it turns out that R value is not the be-all end-all for determining how warm a sleeping pad is, and only one of these sleeping pads is actually one that I would recommend taking for extremely cold temperatures.